So when complex numbers are in polar form, there are some things that we can do. And one of the things we can do is multiply them. And so this creates a little bit of notation. So let's say you have a complex number, call it z sub 1, and we're going to represent that as r sub 1 times cosine theta sub 1 plus I sine theta sub 1. And then you have another complex number, z sub 2, and we're going to have that in the form r sub 2 cosine theta sub 2 plus I sine theta sub 2, okay, to distinguish between the two complex numbers. Then if you want to multiply them, if you want to take z1 times z2, the way to do that is you multiply the two r's, so r1 times r sub 1 times r sub 2, and then you add the angles. So it's going to be theta sub 1, cosine of theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2, plus I sine theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2. And that's how you multiply them. Now you might be thinking, well, why don't we just do it in rectangular form? Wouldn't that be easier? Well, if you had a lot of complex numbers that you wanted to multiply together, it might be easier to do it in polar form. Okay. Or if they gave it to you in polar form. So here we have an example. Find the product z sub 1, z sub 2, and they tell us z sub 1 and z sub 2. So we're going to say z sub 1, z sub 2, and I can write this out. R sub 1, R sub 2. Maybe I want to use a bracket. Cosine, and then it's going to be theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2 plus I sine theta sub 1 plus theta sub 2. And then we just have to plug things in. So my R here for z sub 1, my R sub 1 is 4. And then that's going to be times 2. So that would be the R for that R sub 2. And then it's going to be cosine. My theta sub 1 is 80 degrees, and my theta sub 2 is 145 degrees. This time they have it in degrees. Sometimes they do that. Okay, so then what do I get? I get 8 cosine, and then what's 80 and 145? 222, or I'm sorry, 225. Now, do they want it in polar form? No, they would like me to change it out of polar form. Okay, so we know 225, that's a special angle, right? So it's in the third quadrant. So both cosine and sine are negative. And it's a 45-degree reference angle. So I'm thinking cosine of 45 degrees is the square root of 2 over 2. And this is the reference angle for 225. Okay, and I had said they were both negative. So it's going to be negative square root 2 over 2 plus, well, I guess I should put minus. Minus plus a negative square root 2 over 2I. Now that takes care of that sine 225 and that cosine 225. We're actually putting in the values. And then we'll distribute the 8. So we should get a negative 4 square root 2 minus 4 square root 2I. And I don't know if they put the I at the back or if they put it between the 4 and the square root. But I'll write it that way. They put it in between. I just looked. So, or when I was a kid, we always put it in the back. But I see it both ways depending on textbooks. So I won't be too picky on that. I think, though, nowadays we do usually see it, the I between the rational number and the radical part. Okay, so there was a little bit more involved with that because it was a special angle we could find the values. Now, they didn't say that they wanted it in polar form. If they had said, oh, by the way, we want our answer in polar form, you would have stopped there. I don't think they say, though. They didn't specify a form, so they should tell you which form they want it in.